Our game of the week, South Carolina versus Ole Miss. This game, to me, I went back and forth on until today. Literally. I had to go back and update the graphics because I had one team winning. And then I was like, wait a second. Maybe I'm not looking at the full picture. Both of their schedules thus far have been pretty identical for the teams that they have played. They both have played Kentucky at this point in time. Ole Miss just lost against Kentucky. South Carolina won against Kentucky. You know, and they played like the old Dominions of the world and the Middle Tennessees and the Georgia States and the Akrons. And then one game that throws a wrench in all this is Ole Miss play Wake Forest and smash them. Did y'all hear about Wake Forest not wanting to play Ole Miss next year?
Yep.
They already canceled it. Yeah.
They already canceled, yeah.
So we're done.
We don't want free money. And then LSU, of course, was the tough loss that South Carolina had at the end of the game. The question that got thrown up today was, is Lenore Sellers, I'm not putting the helmet back on, so don't ask. Is Lenore Sellers...
It's calling you like the Green Goblin mask right now.
Is Lenore Sellers going to start in this game? And it looks like Shane Beamer came out and said, you know, pretty much it looks like he might be ready to go by that time. But from what we've seen and what's been so funny now and the things that I've been saying over the years is Robbie Ashford is a better player than what people are giving him credit for. And he actually has done well. I guess they played Akron, but still coming in and doing as well as he has.
Rubber capital of the world.
Yeah, rubber capital of the world, the Zips. You know, it propels your team forward to be an unexpected opponent, right? And I think that's what Ole Miss is going into this game for. Jackson Dart, by all accounts, has been incredible. 1,800 yards, 13 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. A lot of us had seen in the last game of how we still would like him to process the field better. Maybe he is getting scapegoated by an amazing wide receiver that nobody likes to talk about, and Trey Harris has been absolutely amazing this year. 49 receptions, 804 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Then Raheem Sanders is starting to come along his own on the South Carolina side, and we're starting to see a spark from him. And then, you know, of course, you have Parrish as the running back, the better out of the two right now statistically. But the X factor to me is two things that I had to decide on. Who could be the most impactful quarterback this game? I think it's Lenore Sellers. And what is our defense is going to look like? By all accounts right now, man, it's hard for me to say that South Carolina might not be. They're getting close to being a top tier quarterback defense in the country. In all regards, right? And I think that at the end of the day, this is what this is going to come down to. And what Ole Miss struggled with, and what I actually talked about, you know, with you guys in the group chat, is Kentucky's got a good defense, and nobody wants to recognize that. And they have to play another defensive or great defensive team, and they just need little bit.
You look at what Kentucky was able to do against Georgia as well.
Yep. And they just need a little bit of what Lenore Sellers can give with his arm talent that Robbie Ashford couldn't do. And those are the two X factors at the end of this game. And I actually have South Carolina pulling out an upset, man. By all regards, I think Ole Miss drops a little bit more. South Carolina has surprised the hell out of me, man. I mean,
Lane Kiffin's just trying to get out of the SIP faster. It's okay, buddy.
They're trying to play Beamer ball for sure. Go ahead. Who was it? Oh,
it's Klee.
Yeah,
all right.
Yes, it's Klee.
It's Klee.
So I know that South Carolina blew out Kentucky, like not just beat them, but destroyed them, clobbered them. And that Kentucky team just beat Ole Miss, but the Gamecocks do look a little different going into this game. You can't really apply the transitive property to college football, but it does give us an idea of where this South Carolina team is at, especially because, you know, that 3-1 record is a little deceptive because of that stupid penalty on the pick six that wiped out a touchdown that would have won South Carolina the game against LSU. So their only loss was, again, a stupid call. They were robbed, and I'll get more to that later. But I know Dante just picked South Carolina win. If you look at the teams and the rankings and everything, or your preseason assumptions and say, oh yeah, like South Carolina's going to get their butts kicked, you're going to be wrong. It's going to be a good game, and there's absolutely reason to believe that South Carolina can win this game. I look at both teams, and I also flip-flop between the two, but I end up landing on Ole Miss. The tough thing for me is
I thought you had South Carolina.
Did I say South Carolina?
Yep.
Oh shoot, you're right. I have South Carolina in my notes. I have South Carolina then. Shoot. I'm just tripping. I didn't read ahead of my own notes that I took. Sorry. It was a long day yesterday and today. So I have South Carolina too. That's lovely. Sorry. So player to watch for Ole Miss is going to be Jackson Dart, not just because he's the quarterback, but geez, he puts up a lot of numbers, but when you look at him play, he really only locks onto and throws to one guy. Of his 18 completions against Kentucky, only 7 went to players not named Trey Harris, who had a monster day. Trey Harris, I mentioned earlier, has a 44% target share, which is pretty insane for college ball. And Dart will need to not only see the field better, but also push the ball downfield more if the Rebels want to win. Dart was 14 of 16 within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage this past week, but 4 of 11 any further than 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. Typically, he is much better in those areas of the field, but he needs to get back to that. So whatever Kentucky did in terms of their coverages, South Carolina is going to see that and be like, we need to do that too. But when you go back and think at how South Carolina played earlier this season against an LSU team who has big plays all across the board, right? And the fact that they should have won, right? But woulda, coulda, shoulda. But they did, they didn't get torn up on defense. And their secondary played well, specifically safety 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗶𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀. He was someone who I was talking about when we covered the LSU and South Carolina game, right? When we were streaming it. He had to pick that pick 6 as I was talking about him to Fishin, who didn't he didn't think that I knew any players for the Gamecocks. LOL. But anyways, sadly, that pick 6 was wiped out by that stupid penalty. But the talented junior safety will be crucial in this game because Dart is coming off of a performance where not only did they lose, but he's struggled to see field. He's struggled to push the ball downfield. So looking at 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀, right? A guy who has proven ball production. Let's not forget against Kentucky, 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀 also had a pick 6. He was SEC Defensive Player of the Week. He makes plays on the football in coverage, and he's a hard hitter when it comes down closer into the box. So if he can provide some good coverage, mixing things up so that way Dart's confused and then help cover tight end 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘂, who is one of the better tight ends in the SEC, then this game gets a whole lot easier for South Carolina, right? If they can confuse Dart. And if they have Lenore Sellers back, even better. Ashford's been, solid in relief for the injured quarterback, but Sellers is better. He also provides more in the running game, even though Ashford has shown capable in that area. Sellers is more dynamic of an athlete. And then also Rocket Sanders, their running back. If he comes back from injury because he left the game against Akron, if he's back and he's ready to go, well, gee, suddenly now you have an incredible running game. And that was another key for this game is you look at how Kentucky dominated the time of possession and they kept the ball out of the hands of a very explosive offense. That's how they win the game. You limit explosive plays and you don't let them have the ball much, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the key to stopping this explosive offense. If you can get the running game going for South Carolina with having Sellers and Rocket Sanders back, then suddenly you're controlling the clock. You control the clock, and 𝗕𝘂𝘀𝘀𝗀𝗀, confuses Jackson Dart and limits explosive plays on the back end of the defense. That is a winning formula for this against this Ole Miss team. I think they do that. I think that they drain the clock, they limit explosive plays, and I have South Carolina pulling off the upset.
Ooh, I like it. Soar, close this out.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do think this is going to be a close game. You look at exactly what Klee was talking about, that penalty that erased the pick six that would have made South Carolina win that game. So you already know that they've been able to get into a shootout with a high-powered offensive team like LSU. Yes, they had struggles in the beginning of the season, especially against, Old Dominion. But that was also the first game of the season. They've kind of figured it out right now. Then you go over and look at Ole Miss's schedule so far. Blew out Middle Tennessee, blew out Wake Forest, so much so to where they're like, yeah, we're not playing you again. And then blew out Georgia Southern. Then they started their SEC play against Kentucky last week and did not look amazing. Like we talked about in today's show and even in the group chat a little bit, Jackson Dart, not all that. It was very inaccurate. And, it just wasn't the Heisman hopeful or Heisman favorite that everybody, was saying that he was, of like, yes, because of what he's shown against Middle Tennessee and Wake Forest, absolutely he should be in the top 4 of the Heisman, potentially even the favorite of it via, all the betting odds that we have had. It's going to be interesting to see which quarterback has South Carolina, or which quarterback goes South Carolina goes with, whether it be Sellers or Ashford. The problem is, I feel like for South Carolina, is that one, you're getting a very pissed off Lane Kiffin now, and two, yes, Robbie Ashford, he played at Auburn. People have had tape before, but not under Shane Beamer. Now they had tape. If this was the first game that Robbie Ashford would have came in, maybe I would have gone with South Carolina. I do think it's going to be close, like a 3-point game. But because Ole Miss has dipped their toe into SEC play now, because you have a pissed off Lane Kiffin, you don't know which quarterback's going to be coming in, suiting up. I'm going to go with Ole Miss on this one.
Ooh.
I think in a very close game.
Again, shout out to Khalif for the crispy embossed graphics.
Oh,
as
no
you see.
problem.
It's a different flair.